let's get down to it. Let's introduce Sarah and Chris Ward. So the topic today is growing produce in hydroponic systems. So back in 2016, Sarah, whose passion is eating really good local food, which I feel you on that, was looking for a hobby to keep her husband Chris busy during the long, dark winter of New Hampshire. What? Because of his engineering and technology background, she suggested hydroponic planting, and the seed to start a farm was planted. After testing out some homegrown crops and researching into starting a business, the idea grew into what Oasis Springs Farm is today, a family-run local farm whose mission is to provide fresh, healthy, and local produce year-round to our community through environmentally friendly practices and high-tech resources. Sarah's background includes working in marketing, public relations, project management, relationship building, and leadership. And Sarah is the lead on seeding, harvesting, business relationship, sales, and delivery coordination. Chris has a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and is currently a vice president of an IT corporation. Work experience includes information technology, planning, and engineering. And Chris coordinates technical aspects of the hydroponics farm along with the financial and strategic planning. So with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen. And Sarah and Chris, would you like to join me up here on stage, and I will hand it over to you.
There we go.
Hello. I'm going to turn my camera off, and off you go.
All right. Well, I was going to start with a background of who we are, but you did that pretty well. We just, the big thing is we don't have a lot of background in the science of hydroponic growing, but we've learned so much in the past 7 years doing it that it's very interesting that the new technologies that have come along with it and what we learn every day when we grow. So just as a basic background of what hydroponic farming is, we grow in shipping containers. So we have 3 containers right now, 2 that are functional, one that the technology is a little bit older. So we're going to hold off to see if we're going to invest in redoing that. We add nutrients into the water, and then that's how the plants get grown. The nutrients get into the water, the plants grow. There's a lot of advantages with hydroponic farming that I'm going to talk about a little bit later, and also some disadvantages too, which I think if any type of farming, you have advantages and disadvantages. So it's important to look at both of that. We're going to start off with a little tour of our farm and the 2 farms. And then we will talk about the benefits and disadvantages, and then we'll do some questions at the end if people have that. All right, and we have done some virtual tours before, but we always kind of try to make the best of it. So hopefully this will work. I think the tower water just turned on. All right, so this is what we call Farm 3, which is our newest farm that we kind of designed on our own. We do mostly lettuces in here, but then you can see the grow wall. Also, we do some kale and chard and some edible flowers as well. I'm just going to put this down for a minute and show a couple kind of like the process of how things get grown in the farm. We're on our very big on food safety here, so put my gloves on. All right, so the first thing that we do is we have these peat moss plugs that get seeded with the seeds in the middle. So every week right now we're doing about 1,000 heads in the one farm and about 800 heads of lettuce a week that we have to seed and then harvest every week. So peat moss seed goes into the seeding area, which you can kind of see here. This is what would you call it?
This is a flood tray.
A flood tray.
So every 4 hours, this tray gets flooded with water, and it wets the holes. So the bottom of these plugs have holes, and it gets flooded, and that's how they get watered. And the water has the nutrients to get them started. And then the water drains it goes back in, it's recycled and ready for the next time.
Yeah, and all of that is automated with the computer system that we use, which Chris will talk about a little bit later after the tour. So right now we have the seedlings in this area for approximately 2 weeks. And then after that, they go up to the main growing area. And the reason for that is you get a lot more space in the main growing area. And the nutrients are a little bit different too up here, right?
There's a higher dosage.
Yeah, higher doses of the nutrients so that they can grow, bigger, faster. So this is one that we just planted actually 2 weeks ago. So you can see the nice roots that are starting to grow. And so this is what do you call this? The
This is
NFT.
NFT, so nutrient film. So this tray. It has water that starts up at the top, and a thin film of water goes along the bottom and then back into the tank at the end. And that pretty much runs all day long, giving them a continuous amount of fresh water, and it's easier for us to clean and work with for this stage of the growing.
Yeah. So another thing to point out is our lights. So these are our new LED lights that we use. They're specifically designed for leafy greens, so you can see a lot of red and blue spectrum in them. We're going to talk about that later, as we did an experiment with the lights to try to find ones that were the best for what we wanted to grow with. I also want to point out, I don't know if you can see there's some fans on each level as well. This helps with airflow. So we're really trying to simulate, what is outside as well. So when you're growing, you need, water, you need nutrients, you need lights. So we do that with the LEDs. You need good airflow, which we do with the fans. You need to have a good temperature, which we actually have an air conditioning that usually runs year round because the lights give off so much heat that we have to be able to maintain that temperature, which is about 60 to 65 degrees for lettuce, ideally.
And a lot of people think LEDs don't give off heat, but they do when you have this many of them. Even in the middle of the winter, they will, without any air conditioning, this room would get well over 100 degrees within 30 minutes. So continually we have to cool with the air conditioner. In the winter, we can pull cold air in from the outside. We have a ventilation system that we can control through the computer, and we do that. But we also have to worry about humidity levels. So in the winter, there's a lot of humidity outside, and bringing that in here, we have to remove a lot of that humidity once it's in here. So we use a combination in the winter of cold air and the air conditioning, and in the summer it's all air conditioning. And we do try to keep the lights on at nighttime. When it's nighttime outside, the lights are on in here to help with the heat. But as we'll talk about when we get more into the lights, these run for about 18 hours a day. So they are on, when the sun is up as well, which makes cooling a little more difficult.
Yeah, the other thing with the humidity is we have dehumidifiers running as well, along with the air conditioner to kind of keep that down. So there's a lot of things that we have to keep monitored. Is the water, the nutrients, the lights, the humidity, the temperature. So it's as much as hydroponic farming can be precise in growing, there's a lot of things that we have to keep an eye on. And automation definitely helps with that. But it's still farming, and you have to keep an eye on those kind of things, if you want the ideal lettuce grown. I was going to grab lettuce that we're going to be harvesting next week, just so you can see the size difference. Okay, so basically this size and this size is about a week difference. So the final 2 weeks of growth is where you really see it explode in size. Right now we have, like I said, we have the seedlings in for 2 weeks. We have our heads in for 3 weeks, and then we harvest. So we are able to grow a head of lettuce in 5 weeks, which is pretty good for the amount of time that it takes for a lettuce head to grow.
And we continually, so we have the farm designed in, since there's 3 weeks in these trays here, we have the farm divided into 3 sections. So we're always growing every week and always harvesting every week.
Yeah, which is different than a typical farm, because you might not have as precise growing with that and be able to know exactly what you're harvesting each week, which actually works out well for us when we're working with restaurants. We are more able to commit, 100 heads every week if we know we're growing 100 heads every week, as opposed to somebody outside that can't really tell precisely when the lettuce heads are going to be ready or how many would be ready each week. Did we touch on everything in farm 3? I think so.
Yep.
Yeah. I'll just point out the towers real quick.
So this is a kind of a drip system where it uses the same water as the NFT trays, but you can point up top here. There's these tubes deliver water into the top of this tower, and the water trickles down and goes in this gutter and then is returned to the main tank. And this is on for, I believe, 15 minutes every hour. And it's just a different type of growing. And like Sarah said, we do some lettuce here, but mostly like that down there, you see kale or things that grow more, what would you say, viney?
Yeah. So things that we like trim off of. So there's certain lettuces that we can, well, most greens you can do this, but kale is nice, and arugula and chard is you can trim off the towers and then keep the original plant in there and then keep trimming for like the next 4 or 6 months and then start over again. So that's why we do the towers that way. It's a little bit easier to harvest it that way.
Then when we come back here, we'll show you where.
I hope the Wi-Fi works.
Okay, we won't go too far back because we don't want to get too far away from the Wi-Fi. But just wanted to show you back in this corner here is where we do the nutrients and the dosing. These sensors.
Still working?
Yep. The water from our water tank gets pumped through here, and these sensors, and here we have these pumps that when the computer detects that something needs to be added, whether it's pH, whatever, these pumps will turn on, pull out of our tanks here, and deposit it into the reservoir, keeping it, at the levels that are necessary. So,
did you want to move it back and forth real quick?
Yeah. So this farm, a shipping container is only 8 feet wide. And when we designed this farm, this is the second one that we built custom. The original one we bought from a company. The second one we designed ourselves, and we'll show you that. And then this was our third one. And I wanted to improve upon the what we did in the other one. But one of the issues is when we're looking at lights, everything is 4 feet. So you'll see in the other farm where we have an aisle down the center, it made it more difficult to purchase lights and get them fitted in here. Unfortunately, when you have lights that are 4 feet wide in an 8 foot wide room, that makes for 2 very narrow aisles. And you can see this aisle is narrow enough as it is. So we put this whole rack is on a movable system, and we can move this whole rack from one side of the farm to the other so that we can access the other side. And I'll show you that. So this turns here. Now we can access this side of the rack. So this allowed us to get more trays in one shipping container than the other section. And one thing you might notice as I was doing that, you saw a bunch of cardboard up on the front here. Sarah mentioned, I think at the beginning, it's kind of a continual science experiment. We're always working on changing things around. We were working with different airflows. We noticed that this front section of the farm everything was growing less than it was in the front, and we discovered we had this theory that our air conditioner, which is at the front, might be making this area too cold. So we put this cardboard on just to experiment to see if that would help, and it did. So we'll be putting on a more permanent shield here. But it just shows some of the things we have to go through is continually trying to diagnose why something's happening, run experiments, and continually tweaking it, even though we've been doing this for several years now.
Yep. I call it pivoting. We're always pivoting to figure out an answer to a question. All right, we're going to head into what we call Farm 2. So this one was built before the Farm 3. So it was kind of an improvement on our first farm, but you'll see the differences from our better farm and Farm 3.
So this one we have, it's the same concept with the NFT trays, except we have a 2-foot section on this side and 2 feet on the other side. It goes back the whole way. But you can see these lights are different. These are strip lights, not like the ones you might have in your kids' bedrooms or whatever. These are actually grow lights. They have the spectrum for growing, but they are older technology. They are not nearly as powerful as the lights that we have in the other farm. In fact, on a par meter, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more, these are about 75, where the ones in our new farm can go up to about 230. And I'll talk about that in more detail in a minute. But what it means is we can grow lettuce in here.
It takes 6 weeks in here.
Yeah, over here it takes 6 weeks. 3 weeks in the bottom tray, and then 3 weeks up here. So when we built the third one, it was trying to find a way to do this more efficiently. How can we invest and make grow more in less space, because we only have enough room for so many of these shipping containers, and if we can grow them more efficiently, we do that. Yeah, that's all I'll talk about for the lights for now.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything else in Farm 2. No. All right, so hopefully that was a good little tour of what we do. So do you want to talk about the computer system right now, or?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
So when we were in the back, I showed you the how the water circulates through and goes across some sensors. Those sensors are hooked up to a device that measures this and then is connected to our computer. This device is actually by a company called Grow Lab from Portugal. There's a lot of companies that make these kinds of things. All this stuff comes out of the cannabis space. That's where all this stuff was developed for, not for growing lettuce. But it works the same. So these are connected into our computer through Ethernet, and there's an application that came with this that allows us to set specific levels and for doing the dosing, and it also does all the timers for our fans and lights and all that, and that's kind of built in. What we've done in addition to that is we're able to take that data that's delivered by all of the sensors and all of the outputs, whether a fan is turned on or a pump is turned on and all that, and we grab all that data it's all in JSON format, load it into a SQL server, and then we can run our own analysis to to see charts of how things are responding. I use Grafana, which is an open source charting utility to display a lot of the data, so I can see trends, and we can look and see like, hey, if we track, hey, this is how stuff grew this week compared to the week before. Well, what was different? Well, we can look and see, like, did we have more lights? Was the temperature different? And we can go back in time and look at that. What we also can do from that is create alerts, which if we detect that the pH level is too high, well, the computer should have been taking care of that and dosing it, but it's still high. Well, why? We got to go see. Did we run out of the pH stuff in our reservoir? Is a tube clogged? Did the schedule in the computer get turned off, or whatnot? So we have these alerts that I custom developed that get sent to me by email, or if they're critical enough, text alerts. And
do we want to show them what the system looks like?
We can.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
I think you hit the mute button on accident.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. So this application came with the Grow Lab equipment, and it allows us, to turn certain things on or off from here. It gives a kind of a visual look at it. So this is our main tank, and it's showing, what the pH level is and the EC level and the water temperature. We can switch to, our seedling water tank, which controls the seedling. It also gives us the ability to set schedules and automation. You can see here, the NFT pump. This is the main pump. It goes on for 5 minutes, off for 5 minutes, and we have that schedule disabled right now while we did the presentation. But we can control all that through here. And then, like I said, this sends data to our local SQL server for further analysis.
Okay. All right, so one of the biggest advantages of hydroponic growing is obviously the control that we have over how we grow. We can do it year round, which is great in New England. A lot of people are doing like hoop houses and greenhouses and stuff, but this can continually do year round. Plus, with all the climate issues that we've been having with either the droughts or the rains, you just be able to control it much better when you're indoors. We work a lot with like the UNH co-op program and some other universities to, always fine tuning what we're doing with that. So we're able to improve on it. Chris had mentioned like the technology for hydroponics has actually been around for quite a while, but it seems like in the last, 10, 15 years, it's really exploded with new technology to make things even better. And a lot of it has to do with the cannabis market, because they just developed a lot more. They have a lot more money into that. But it feeds into growing vegetables and leafy greens and lettuce as well. So we'll be able to benefit from that. And we're seeing that. I mean, we've seen so much change in just the last 7 years with the technology. So that's kind of a nice advantage too, that things are always changing and improving. One of the biggest things that we wanted to touch upon was the lights, because when we were looking to do the Farm 3 project, the original lights from our Farm 2, they were part of the unit that we had bought. So we just went with what we had because it was cheaper and they worked, and that's what we went with. But we wanted something even better when we went to Farm 3, so, like Chris said, so that we could really harness into how we can grow more lettuce in a short amount of time, because that means more profits for your farm. And when you're in here for a business, that's what you want to do.
Yeah. So as far as the lights go for growing plants, there's something called DLI, the daily light integral. And it's a measure of usable light that a plant receives in the course of the day. And when you add that all up, that tells you how much a plant needs to grow. So through experimentation, we found that to grow a head of lettuce the size that we want to sell to our customers, it needs a total of about 240 DLI. So the DLI is calculated basically by the light intensity times the number of hours per day, and then it converts into some other conversion there. But so what we found is we're able to measure that with a par meter. We could measure the intensity of the lights in our original farm and how long it took us to grow a head of lettuce. And we knew we wanted to reduce the amount of time it was in the NFT trays by a week. So using that formula, we're able to figure out, hey, we need to get lights that are at least this par, then we run them for this long to drop that from 21 days down to 14. So, and that's what we've done. Our new lights, they have a maximum of 230 par, but we have them dimmed down to 180 par, and we run the lights for 18 hours a day for 21 days, for 14 days, and that equals about 240 DLI, which is equal to what we were doing in the older farm over 21 days. So that's kind of some of the stuff with the lights that we had to investigate, and it took us several months working with the light manufacturer to figure this out and what worked for us. We evaluated lights from a couple different manufacturers. The company we ended up going with is actually out of Sweden. And they do a lot more with growing vegetables over in Europe than we do in the U.S. So most of the U.S. manufacturers, unfortunately, create lights that are more designed for cannabis, or which is an even higher intensity, and you have to have 2 stages of lights for the flowering and the vegetative states. But when you're growing leafy greens, it's just one constant level of lights after the seeds have sprouted. So we were focusing on lights that were designed for that. So that's why we went to Sweden.
Yeah. I mean, you might have read before that, like Chris had mentioned, Europe is like far ahead of us on like the hydroponic growing techniques. And actually the number one country where they grow the most hydroponic is the Netherlands. And it was born out of the fact that they just don't have a lot of land there. And so they needed ways to grow, a lot of produce. And now I think they're one of the biggest exports of vegetables in that area, just doing it the hydroponic way. So we do get a lot of technology out of the European area. So Heliospectra worked with us. They were great. I was just going to point out that there is a case study on their website, if anybody wants to check it out, about what we did and how we improved what we grew with the lights. And we're still experimenting with it. So I talked about some of the benefits of hydroponic growing, but to get into one of the disadvantages is one of the things we're running into right now is the electricity rate that has really skyrocketed in the past, 2 or 3 years, because everything we do in here is basically fed off electricity. The lights, the pumps, the air conditioner, the fans, the fridges that we use, once we do harvest and stuff. So we're very dependent on electricity. So we're currently doing some experiments now with the lighting to see if we can reduce either the time or the intensity just a little bit, to see if we can, reduce that cost, but also have the lettuce heads that we need to grow in order to sell. With the electricity, then we also have to have backup plans, which can be a disadvantage. So we have generators in case we have to use them, people on call, if we aren't around, to just make sure things are running correctly. And like Chris said, alerts in case things turn off or electricity goes off. The other big disadvantage of hydroponic growing is the cost involved. I mean, a lot of technology isn't cheap. We put in a a good amount of money to start up with our first farm, and then the second 2 farms as well. We had great support from Farm Credit Union to help with that. Sorry, I'm dying. So yeah, it is an investment. The new lights were definitely an investment. But with financial planning, we knew that even if we spent so much with these new lights, we'd be getting a return with the amount of lettuce that we could grow with them. So, it's one of those things you always have to look at in a business of, what you're investing into it. So yeah, that's what I have do you have any other advantages, disadvantages?
I think we wanted to leave time for questions, right?
Yeah. So yeah, we've shared a lot, but I'm sure people have a lot of questions.
Thank you both. So if anybody has questions, if they want to put them in the chat, I don't know, Sarah, if you guys can see the chat on the screen that you're on, but people can throw in the chat. I have a question while people are typing in their other questions. I'm curious about the amount of water that you use on like a weekly or monthly basis, and like how are you? I'm assuming that there's some water recycling going on, but like can you talk a little bit about that process?
Oh yeah, that's great. That's actually probably a big advantage that I didn't think about.
So the main tank is about 120 gallons, and we use that water for about a month before we drain it, clean the tanks, and refill it. And during that month, it depends. We may have to put a little bit more water in, but typically not much. In the summer, we actually have to drain water because the air conditioner and the dehumidifiers are pulling so much moisture out of the air, especially when we're pulling fresh air from the outside, that it puts all that water into the tanks to be used. So we actually don't use more than 120 gallons in the summer. In the winter, we do lose some water and just from the plants taking them, and we'll add some per week. I wouldn't say it's probably more than 10 to 15 gallons per week.
Yeah. I mean, overall, it's a lot less than your traditional farming outside, because when you're irrigating outside, you're watering the plants and it's just going into the ground and you're losing it. So with the recycled system, you're definitely, saving water that way.
Yeah. Okay, great.
All right. Let's see. Where do you distribute your products? So we are majority right now is we sell to restaurants. We have a couple schools that buy from us. For local stores, we have a butcher store on Amherst Street called the Flying Butcher that sells for us. We are going to be starting the co-op stores up in Lebanon and Hanover again. We did those last year. They buy from us in the winter, and then they do locally in the summertime. We also offer a direct-to-sales program. So we used to run like a CSA program, which many people have seen, where you sign up and you get a certain amount of product every week. And it was good. We ran it for a while, and we had a lot of different locations, and then we just wanted to keep it a little bit more simple. So now we just do direct-to-sales. You can buy off our website. We have 3 places in Nashua that you can pick up from, and yeah.
Yep. Let's see. Curious about nutrients. So, unfortunately, we're not experts at hydroponic growing, so we do not make our own nutrients. We purchased from a company called Jack's Nutrients. We use 2 parts. The first part A is 5-12-26. I'm not exactly sure what that means. And then the second part is the nitrogen, and those 2 go in equal amounts to do the nutrients. Solar, we would love to do solar. Unfortunately, a couple problems. One is our property here is not conducive to solar with the amount of trees. The second thing is we use a lot of electricity. So we use over 13,000 kilowatt hours a month. That's probably like the size of amount of like 12 houses. So it would be a lot of solar panels to be able to be able to go solar. If we were on a larger property, it would definitely be something that we would be looking into.
Yeah, I'm really waiting for New Hampshire to get on board with the whole solar farm projects that maybe we can tap into, but New Hampshire hasn't done that yet. Maine is starting to. Let's see. Do we have a backup source for electricity? Yep, we have generators that we have ready to go if we need to put them into motion. I think we've only had to use them once.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is good. I'd rather not use them.
So the footprint, each of our containers is 8 feet wide by 40 feet long. We have 3 of them. Currently, we're only using 2, and then we have this little room that we're sitting in now that kind of connects all 3 containers together, which is probably 8 by 16. We use this for packaging and whatnot. We have no more room to expand at this location, so if we were to expand further, we would be moving these containers off-site to a different place and expand there. And that's one of the reasons that why we like the shipping container idea versus building a building. We definitely wanted, at our initial stage, we wanted a home business, so we could be home with our kids, and that while they were younger. As they're getting older, that's not as important anymore. So we could move these containers to a different place where we could expand and have more of them.
Do you have any issues with bugs, and how do we handle the issue? So no, we don't really have a lot of issues with bugs because we keep everything indoors and enclosed. Occasionally a fly will come in every once in a while, but and that's one of the big advantages too, is because we don't have a lot of bugs that we deal with. We don't use any pesticides or chemicals or anything like that on our greens. So they're just super clean when they come out harvested.
No soil, we don't even wash the lettuce before we eat it. It's that clean. It's never been touched by any animals or human hands or anything like that. So very clean.
Yeah. We do get occasional spider once in a while too. But do you have additional employees? So yes, I have a couple part-time employees that work with us. It is my full-time job. Chris still has his regular full-time job and helps out when needed.
I mostly do the maintenance, and that takes maybe on average maybe 5 hours a week.
Yeah, we've had a pretty good crew working in here. We're changing some things up, so I'm in the process right now trying to figure out the staffing that we actually do need. So I've been working a lot more than I usually do, but we do have some people that help because we really try to do the harvesting and packaging and delivery as fast as we can to get it to restaurants and places right away, because that's the biggest advantages of local farms is you want something right away. Typically when you go to the grocery store, and you're buying lettuce, it's probably from California or Arizona, and it's probably been on the truck for a week before you get it in the grocery store. So when you buy that bag of lettuce and it goes bad in 3 days, it's because you're getting it, 10 days after it was harvested. But when you get it, from a local farm, you're getting it pretty soon after that, pretty soon as it was harvested. So you're getting more of the nutrients, and you're just getting more of the flavor into it as well. So we try to do things as much as we can earlier in the week. And then the rest of the week we do the wrap up cleaning and paperwork and all that. How many salads do you eat per week?
Not enough.
Not enough. I eat a lot of salads and vegetables. That's just how I eat. So it's natural to me. I do a lot of smoothies with the kale as well. We're definitely working on our kids eating some more salads and stuff. It's one of those things, I don't get sick of lettuce. You would think working with 1,800 heads of lettuce a week, you'd get sick of it, but I don't. I still love it. It's good stuff. Can you take off for a vacation for 2 weeks? That is hard. That is really hard to do vacation. Even with everything that's automated, I still feel like, a lot of stuff isn't automated, like the harvesting and the seeding and the deliveries. You still have to do that in person.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the way the schedule works is, and this is unlike traditional farms, we're on a schedule, and you plant, and then it needs to be harvested exactly 3 weeks later. Because if you don't harvest it, then it messes up the schedule going forward. So that's one part of it that makes it difficult, is that we need to be doing something every week as far as the harvesting goes. The second aspect is the maintenance of this can be difficult. If everything's working great, Sarah takes care of everything as far as cleaning, adding nutrients, and that. But it's a very mechanical environment. There's constantly something going wrong, whether it's a tube gets clogged or a pump breaks, or who knows what it is, and it takes a lot of troubleshooting skills to diagnose things on a weekly. Even years later, I'm seeing stuff that I've never seen before, and have to figure out what's going on, and then develop a way to fix it. So that part is difficult, because we don't have anybody else who can take on that role if we're out of town. So we have been limiting our vacations to a shorter than 2 weeks.
Yeah, we do a lot of long weekends. That works for our life right now, but we'd have to really rethink it, going down the road, because vacations are important. Do we grow herbs at all? Yes, we have grown herbs before. We used to sell them in our CSA, but they grow much slower, and you don't get as much off of them as the lettuce. So as a business, we really have to focus on lettuce in order to make a profit.
Yeah, unfortunately, in the last year, with the electricity rates nearly doubling, we've had to really look at what are the profitable things, and really focus only on those, because we've raised the prices as much as we're willing to do it. Our customers are willing to pay, but in order to continue to make a profit, we can only do certain items. And herbs, unfortunately, although people want them, we can't sell them for what it really costs us to grow them.
Yeah. What is next for your farm? I don't know. What is next for our farm? We're right now we're entering into our winter selling season, which actually is our busiest season, because again, we're a good source for places that don't have like the year-round growing. So, like I said, we're going to be selling with the co-ops up north, and
yeah. And on the technical side, we showed you 2 of our shipping containers. Our original shipping container, which was something we bought from a company called Freight Farms. You can Google them and find out information about. They're out of Boston. That one it's older technology. It didn't really work quite as well as they advertised, so we stopped using it about a year ago, because with the higher electricity rates, it just wasn't efficient enough to turn a profit. But we'd like to turn that back on, but to do that, we need to renovate it, put in more efficient lighting and whatnot.
Yeah, so we'd have to see if the demand is there for what we could grow, if it was worth the investment to turn that farm over. Yeah. What are the certifications required to operate your farm, and was it difficult to get started? So surprisingly, no real certifications to start a farm in New Hampshire. They're pretty much very supportive of people growing local food. We did touch base with our local public health department that you have to do that in Nashua, and
they are treating this as they would any other farm.
Yep.
That said, we have been working with UNH. They have
a food safety program that we've worked with.
And they're interested in developing programs for hydroponic growing, and how what safety and health requirements should be there for that, because it's something kind of new to them.
Yeah. What other kinds of vegetables can you grow besides lettuce and kale? So hydroponically, you can grow other types of lettuces or other types of things. I've seen cucumbers, tomatoes, carrots, but it comes down to space.
Well, it's space, but also in our case, our lights are one spectrum for one type. So if you grow something that fruits in that like whether tomatoes,
like
strawberries, yeah, tomatoes, cucumbers, all those require different levels of light when they're at the two different stages, and that would require a very different setup than what we have. So we're limited with the lights that we have. These are designed for leafy greens only.
Yeah, but like I said, in Europe, they're doing a lot of hydroponic growing, and it's not just leafy greens. It's a lot more of the other bigger stuff. I think I've actually seen like raspberries and blueberries starting to be grown hydroponically too. Have you ever tried microgreens? Yes, we have. We had microgreens with our CSA program where we did the trays of microgreens. They were very popular. If people don't know what microgreens are, they're basically like kind of like sprouts. They're very tiny plants. So think like broccoli, radish, kale that you harvest like 2 weeks after you start growing them. So they only grow to about this size, but very nutrient packed. To put on items or put into smoothies and stuff like that. So we have done them. We've done pea shoots before. We're looking into maybe doing some wheatgrass. It just comes down to space. Our microgreen growing area was in our first farm. So that's when we shut down the first farm. That's why we kind of got rid of the microgreens. They also were a little bit labor intensive because they had to be hand harvested and cleaned up a little bit more and stuff. So yeah. All right, I think we got through all the questions. Unless there's any other question.
Yeah, I don't see any other questions. So
Good.
if anybody else has any questions, send them in now. But this has been super interesting. This is so very different from my like day to day, but also sort of the continuous monitoring. There's some similarities there. So this is really fascinating. So.
Yeah.
So thanks for taking the time to meet with us and present.